Welcome to the 2024 Traveller Mayday Mayday event. I'm your host, Frank Succardi from CyborgPrime Games. Today I have a very special guest, the man himself, Mr. Marc Miller. Thank you for joining us, Marc.
Frank, thank you for having me. We've only got 4 days until Star Wars takes over the calendar. So between May 1st and May the 4th, it's Traveller time.
That's right.
And we should make the most of it.
That's right. It's Mayday Mayday, and which is a way better play on words, in my opinion, than May the 4th. For newcomers to the scene, why don't you tell us who you are and how you're related to Traveller?
No, I'm the Emperor of Traveller. I'm the guy who started it all and continues to run it with an iron fist. And those that do what I like are rewarded with nobilities and favors from the Emperor, and those that don't are banished to the edges of the Empire. So I think that covers it.
You are a benevolent and ruthless leader.
I'll interrupt you for a minute. I can remember before Traveller ever started, when we were playing in the upstairs workspaces of Game Designers Workshop, I just dreamed of interstellar empires, and I had this kind of generic thought of an interstellar empire. One of the things I remember is the date 1105 just hung in my mind. I wanted an empire that was more than 1,000 years old and that had been exploring for generations. We have it. And it's really a blessing to all of us. We were doing it a long time ago, and I mean almost 50 years ago. We were just having fun. It was, the story I tell is that when friends came by and showed us Dungeons and Dragons and introduced us to that, we were all game designers. We were all game players. We knew how gaming worked. And it took about 5 minutes to understand how D&D worked. 2 weeks later, our company president, Frank Chadwick, said, "You're not allowed to play Dungeons and Dragons while the sun is up," because we were getting no work done. And that's just the magic part of D&D and role-playing. We were having a wonderful time. We had these resources. We had blank hex sheets and an unlimited supply of Sharpies and markers, and we were making maps of continents and island continents and exploring them, and huge structures of underground temples to explore. And one of us would run a game one hour, and somebody else would say, "Now it's my turn," and we would play in their game, and it was just having fun. And here we are almost 50 years later, and this is a positive enterprise that parents play with their children. Who would have thought? Grandparents play with their grandchildren. Intergenerational, good, clean fun. Gen Con is this huge convention that draws people from all over. This is an industry that employs thousands of people and makes enjoyable times for literally millions of people. Every young man and most young ladies encounter Dungeons and Dragons or role-playing or something somewhere in their early teen years. It works for some, it doesn't work for others. But we are this wonderful, enjoyable time, and I say I'm the Emperor. An emperor is nothing without an empire. And we have all these people who enjoy Traveller or gaming or role-playing or Dungeons and Dragons. It's not a forbidden phrase around here. We say that all the time.
Right.
And this is just a great hobby to be in.
I'm amazed at how much it's gotten into pop culture. Like I hear sometimes even like people on the news, like newscasters, they might frame something in a D&D or Star Trek term or something, and I was like, wow, the newscaster just said, oh, they're the Sauron of politics or something, and I just thought that was funny that, that kind of thing that no, people weren't ostracized, but it was kind of for nerdy people or whatever at the time, and you didn't know if it was ever going to really take off back in the day. And now it's just part of our nomenclature and our everyday talking. And when people mention D&D, even if you've never played it before, you've seen it on Stranger Things, and you've heard about it, and you've heard it mentioned on Big Bang Theory or whatever, and so it's there, and it's amazing that it is gone, like when you look at it, like in retrospect. And that was something I was going to ask you about. When you started this, you probably were hoping that your game would be popular, but did you ever think it would have 50-year-long legs?
I had no idea of that. I mean, I suppose I should have. We just wanted to sell enough games. One of the experience in game design at the time is we kind of wondered, is this the last order we'll ever get? Have we now sold everything we possibly can? People out there, orders just kept coming in.
Mm-hmm.
People just kept coming around, and we developed a following. People wrote us. This is the time of writing letters, passionate letters about what they did in their game and how much they enjoyed it. Not just in role playing, but in wargaming and in miniatures gaming. We didn't know it was going to come this far, but we certainly are pleased that it has.
Was there ever a Traveller fan club back in the day?
No.
Hmm.
Today everybody can get on bulletin boards and discussion boards and do all they want.
Mm-hmm.
It was that got together finally to play Traveller on that Saturday night or that weekday afternoon or something.
Mm-hmm.
We get together, and one of the magic things about Traveller is there's so much you can do without getting together with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
You can build worlds all night long. You can build spaceships all night long. Today you can share them with other people. Then you just made them for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot to do that you don't have to have other people there to do it.
Right. People probably tired of hearing me say this in the interviews, but I was just mentioning that one of the ways that it meant something to me back when I was younger and first started getting into it was I would take it with me on vacation when my parents were going to visit relatives that I didn't really know, or I didn't really have friends at that place. And so I would just bring my notebook and my little black books, and I would make sectors after sector after sector, star system after star system, and that whole like programmatic type structure of how you go through the procedures of making the planets really just clicked with me, and man, I could do that all day long. So thanks for that.
Forgive me, Frank, but that's really nerdy.
It's super nerdy. Yes, it is very nerdy. Well, my license plate says nerd up, so I embrace my inner nerd. Yeah, so let me think. So how did you, after you first started the success of Traveller, what came to mind about like where to go with it next? Did you started making new versions, or there's Marc Miller's Traveller, there's T5, and there's other books and things. So how did you decide, or did you see back then the direction you wanted to take it, or did you just go like a step at a time and just go to the next stepping stone?
One of the things that we discovered, because we were doing the Europa series of World War II in Europe at this 25-mile hex division level units, the map is literally 10 miles on a side, 10 feet on a side. People liked our game. We produced a game. We produced part one of the series. And people would like it, but they won't buy it again. They have it. It's just a common decision. They want the next installment in the series. It would have been cheaper and easier for them to buy another copy of this big game rather than try and sort all those counters after playing it once. They wouldn't do that. They wanted to buy something new. And we learned that early. And the same goes with role-playing with Traveller, that we put out the 3 little black books in 1977. After about 4 years, that's 1981, we revised it. Same format, same stuff, just changed some of the rules, made some tweaks, and kept selling it. We enjoyed that. People enjoyed that. It worked for them. The no color on the cover, which is a brilliant marketing move by Rich Banner.
That's branding that has stood the test of time.
Still there. It's still our brand, and nobody else can. We were there first, and so you can't say, "Oh, that's a good idea. We'll do that too." You just look like you're copying. But it cost money to do color on covers. It cost money to have good artists. And by 1988, 87, 88, when we did Mega Traveller, we thought we needed to move into more sophisticated packaging.
I love the cover of Mega Traveller.
Yes, well, you know, David Dietrich did a great job on that material. Our treatment of role-playing games always had a narrative to it. Originally, I thought Traveller would be a kind of a GURPS generic system that would cover everybody, every possible science fiction story. You know, I remember reading Heinlein's Juveniles and Asimov's Foundation. I remember consuming a pulp novel a day sometimes because I really lived, ate, and breathed science fiction. But making it generic had to cover all possibilities. Once we decided there was a space navy, we needed a space empire to own the space navy and to fund it. If you have an empire, what kind of an empire is it? Is it a strange empire run by mystics? Is it the Dune Empire with mystics running interstellar space, or is it just understandable people getting in a spaceship and kind of turning the switch and turning it on and taking off and going, which is kind of what the Heinlein Juveniles was and what a lot of this ordinary science fiction was at the time. We had to just put that together. And after we had established the empire for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, we wanted to shake it up, which is why we went to Mega Traveller, because of the rebellion. Several years later, we wanted to shake it up again by doing New Era, dealing with the aftermath of the rebellion. When GDW closed down and I was running Traveller myself, the concept was that we would find a publisher to publish the new edition. And that was Traveller 4, Marc Miller's Traveller. I was introduced by that side of the force that putting my name on the top would be very ego-driven. It was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. But you know, that's set in a new era, a different era, the early years of the empire. We keep coming back to the Spinward marches. We keep coming back to the golden age of Traveller. It just resonates with people.
It does. People like that. There's a high nostalgia level to this game, and I think people have like fondness for the original Spinward marches and a lot of the early content.
I do, and you know, those content are just little things that happen against the broader backdrop that people remember, not only the pyramids of shadows, but also how they got there, which is something that is not written down. You know, they knew that they were wandering in this part of the Spinward marches. There's always something to do. It's always more opportunities. One of the things that I call it a marketing plan. It's reclaim your lost youth. That a lot of people are reaching out to pick up those books that they couldn't get the last time they were in there, which is 40 years ago, and now they have the money. They have the leisure time to do it, and they can buy them very cheaply compared. I mean, the Traveller, the classic Traveller CD-ROM has everything except journal that GDW produced in one CD-ROM for $35. That's just an incredible bargain.
It is. It's a huge amount of content.
And that's just one of those CD-ROMs. It's more than just a collectible, recover the books you didn't get once upon a time. Because that's a toolkit to play with your grandson. You can haul it out. You remember what it was. You can haul that out and you can play with him or her. I say grandson, I mean grandchild. And build it yourself and put it together. And there's no one answer that's there. I'm going to wander around here, but Mongoose is just releasing the Fifth Frontier War. And I've had some wonderful conversations with them. I'm not sure where it's going, but that's fine. But one of the things that I talked about is, where does the Fifth Frontier War go? When we did it, after the war, we had the same result we had in the previous 4 wars. Nothing changed. What if the Empire loses that war? What is that Spinward Marches? What does that Spinward Marches look like? What if it wins spectacularly and changes the power balance with the Zhodani consulate? What does that mean for players and spaceship travel and everything else, exploring areas that you never thought you could? Or maybe the answer is just things changed. I don't know.
How do you balance that against like a player base who kind of likes things the way it is? Like how do you balance keeping it as it is and happy towards the existing customer base, but also considering, well, it needs to grow and change over time because it is a progressing timeline, and how do you strike a balance?
Well, you're asking questions that this group of people that I work with ask all the time. What do we do? Because the easiest way is to not change anything.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the hard way is to change things, and then people don't like it. I don't like the new era. I don't like the wave. I don't like the rebellion. I often find that when I present the Fifth Frontier War to players in the Spinward Marches, they turn and left and go somewhere else. And they don't want to be in the war, and they don't want to be near the war, and they don't want to be challenged by the war. But there are unseen benefits. One of the things that has been a long time in working out, and I'm not sure where, because I don't know where it's going to go yet. We call it the Galaxiad. We call it 1902. What is the Spinward Marches like in 1902? It's after the rebellion, after the collapse created by the wave from the new era. What does the wave mean? What about the vampire fleets? What does all that mean? What is it like 800 years later? There are things that people don't like. First of all, I have committed myself to not decanonizing major things in Traveller. So I have to accept the rebellion. I have to accept a new era and the wave from the center of the galaxy. I can recharacterize what it means or where it came from, but I have to accept it. I have to accept vampire fleets. But for example, once you have the vampire fleets and the crazy, murderous, artificial intelligent ships that can ruin interstellar travel,
mm-hmm.
There are wonderful benefits in there. In 1902, we basically consider that there are intelligent and non-insane ships.
Mm-hmm.
Because logic dictates what happens. If there is a ship that is intelligent, it needs to be refitted from time to time. It needs to be restocked. It needs to work with the interstellar society, and it can't just go in and steal steal things, it needs to work with them. It was always hard for me to just say, this ship is intelligent and it can tell you what it thinks and it can make its own decisions. How did it get there? Who installed that artificial intelligent brain in the ship? Why did they do that? Why did they set it free? And the new era and that whole thing from Traveller, that period in Traveller that some people don't like.
The virus period?
The what?
The virus?
Yes.
Yes. I always liked it. As a consumer of the product, I was happy that new stuff was coming out. And so, when the virus came out, I worked with it, and I actually made it as the way of bridging from the old version that we were on, or Mega Traveller or whatever, to the new era. So,
yes.
Mm-hmm.
So then, one of the challenges of Traveller is of role playing in general is, how do you address, what are the challenges that you have to address? I've always played with the idea, always been afraid of it. I'm concerned about it. What about artificially intelligent ships? And here we have, in this Galaxiad era of 1902 that we're trying to think about, intelligent ships that can be played by a player. And it's not just, okay, you're intelligent. You were established like HAL in 1993 in Urbana, Illinois. Instead, you have an intelligent computer on a ship which can trace its roots to murderous, insane computers. And it's gotten better, he says. Still an element of I'm not quite sure I trust that ship. And he has still an element of trying to make sure you do trust him, because we human characters have the ability to totally paralyze an artificially intelligent computer if we take the right steps.
Mm-hmm.
You see those as challenges. When we started playing role-playing, we just played. And there are some foundational challenges about role-playing that are important. One of them is, no one guy is the perfect character, the Arnold Schwarzenegger strong and intelligent whatever guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a team. We have 4 or 5 people, and nobody can be every crew member. We need an astrogator, we need a pilot, we need an engineer, we need a medic. Just like we need a healer, we need a fighter, whatever that is. In any role-playing situation, it's the cooperation of the players that get us to the end and victory. Even if some of our players are dishonest or
flawed,
or evil or flawed, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when you came up with the Empire, what made you decide to make it mostly benevolent Empire instead of like a Star Wars Empire?
I wanted the universe of Traveller to be understandable to any new player. I took as my model America or the Earth. Both of those work for me. You can go anywhere in the United States, and it pretty much works the way you want it to. On the other hand, there are places where you will suffer prejudice for who you are. You will not be treated nicely because you're a stranger. But the general rules on how society works are the same, that if you don't violate most of the rules, you're pretty much okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that in kind of civilized right around Regina and several of those worlds. That's just fine. You go a little farther, it's like going to Africa or South America. All of a sudden, the rules of society aren't quite as well known as the ones we know in Illinois or Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the models, but it's never so far distant that the society you encounter in the Empire or on the edges of the Imperium are run by people that you can't understand and who don't pay any attention to you and just victimize you. or ignore you.
Mhm.
That you can always go in and bargain and come out, maybe you'll be cheated this time, but for the most part, you can get what you want with some cost, or you can take your spaceship where you want with some difficulty, but not impossible.
Mhm.
And that's understandable. It's understandable. Any new player, they can just say, I want to go in this store. Okay, they have stuff for sale. Maybe they insist that you give a handprint first or that you show your money first, but they still sell you what you want.
Mhm.
Um, it's the challenge of the unknown out there that you're exploring. But it's not so. There are role playing games that are challenges. The example I use is Fated Sons. Um, there is a challenge to that role playing game. The structure is run by an evil, corrupt, religious dictatorship.
Mhm.
We have those in Traveller. That's not the central structure of Traveller. You don't have to deal with that. If you want to, we can take you to a world that is ruled, or a system, or a sector, or a subsector, or something that is ruled by that sort of thing, um, or by the Communist Party, or by kleptocrats, or by a democracy that might not like you. But those are all individual challenges, and when you leave that, you end up at a place that's pretty much like O'Hare International Airport. There are rules and regulations, but you can pretty much get by. I wanted that. I wanted this a standard that people could understand and deal with, and then go to the exceptions. One of the rules that one of the worlds that I take people to or have people search for, I call it the golden world, where it has all the high numbers for production and industrial capacity. You can buy stuff cheap there that's worth a lot of money, um, and has high quality, and other people would like it. And something will probably get in the way that's difficult for you to get back to them. But it's an interesting paradise sort of world. There are also hell worlds that you don't want to go back to either because it's just too hard and you could end up dead. Um, but the center, the mean that we're at, is understandable society. It's understandable human society because we are mostly humans.
Mhm. We'll give the idea for how the different polities interact. And did you come up with like, all right, so if we have an empire now, the empire needs an enemy, or how did you kind of build that out and come up with like what would the nature of the enemies be and things like that?
You're quoting me. We have an empire. We need enemies, or what's the purpose of the space navy?
Get out of my head, Frank.
So we took a piece of paper. We took a map. We put the empire in the middle, and we drew that. That's good, and gave it an important geographical, astrographical location in the center of everything. We early on thought that Earth is inconsequential. Nobody cares about the Earth because we left that behind a long time ago. That's a very common trope in science fiction. It also meant that we weren't making people Earthlings. We could leave that all behind. That wasn't important. We drew a line down the middle, and on the left, we wanted aliens in human suits. We have Zhodani, which are tall and have, look strange. The Darians with elf ears. The Aslan are in cat suits. Up towards the top is the Vargar in dog suits. I say that disrespectfully, but it's not meant to be disrespectful. There's
humanity within them is what, like, identifiable humanity because they're anthropomorphic.
Exactly.
Okay.
And those were the ones which were identifiably anthropomorphic. Over time they've evolved. I have this trope that humans have social standing. The Vargar have, we call it charisma, but they're small group dominance, the leader of the pack for the dogs. And that changes all the time. It makes their society chaotic. They literally are dogs. So if you if one of our human characters steps in and kind of asserts dominance, they pretty much will accept it. It's fun. It's a great trope to play.
Right. So the Vargur, for folks who don't know, those are uplifted wolves, basically.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep. And they have, because of the structure the story that we've told, their hands are probably human hands, as opposed to paws. We call them paws, but they have enough of a usable hand that we think they were not just uplifted, but there's some human DNA in there. Down at the bottom of this map that I'm talking about, we have Earth, the Solomani. And they, and they're racist. They're terrible. They're America First people. They're terrible people.
Just say terrible.
And they say that, they are the original source of humanity, which they are, and thus they have a special place in everything, and they are important. And then they're caught up in things like they say this Earth is the source of of humans, and so they deserve to be in charge. Except Earth is also the source of the Vargur. So do they deserve a place of importance too? And they would. Now we argue about things. We wanted multifaceted challenges. Over to the right of this map that I'm talking about, we have aliens that aren't in human suits, humans in alien suits. We have the Kukri. John Harshman invented them, so to speak. He wanted militant, vegetarian aliens. Enough so that they're strong enough that you have to be careful to not have meat on your breath or you'll offend them, and they won't tolerate you. We have the hiver, starfish sort of people. You can't just put a human inside that suit and make it work. I don't know how that works. They're alien. Those species, those sophonts, are harder to play. They are less often played because they're harder to play. They represent a challenge to a player who can really make have a good challenge.
It's like a way to adjust the difficulty level for yourself.
Yes, exactly. So, we've learned over time as well. I say sophonts. Call them aliens. Alien Book 1, Alien Book 2, it makes perfect sense to us on Earth that they're aliens. Except what are humans to them are aliens. And so I use a term that science fiction adopted in the 50s called sophont, which is an intelligent species. It's more sophisticated than sapient. And I use that because I'm trying to talk about an interstellar community that has more than just humans out there. We come back to the Empire. It's supposed to be a cosmopolitan, eclectic empire that accepts everybody, except it's run by humans. It's ruled by a human emperor. There are, I call this concept wheels within wheels. There's the easy concept that seems apparent. It's a nice, benevolent empire. Except, of course, if you try and challenge the humans who run it. In which case, it's not nearly as benevolent as you thought it was. Don't make waves, everything's fine. Start challenging the superiority of the humans, and your particular non-human species is going to find itself on the wrong end of the stick.
I've always thought of the Empire being humanocentric, but is there... there might be ambassadors and things. Do you envision other races to be in the hierarchy of the Empire?
As long as they're not
challenging the Emperor.
Not challenging the Emperor. I mean, I think it's entirely possible for non-humans to be.
But they would still be in the. They would still be in the order of succession. But maybe stuffed really far down.
They're not, because the order of succession is hereditary.
Oh, right, of course.
And
Hmm.
um, I have these lists. There are these various lists and resources, and one of them is the list of the emperors. They're all human.
Hmm.
And somewhere in there of the um, during the emperors of the flag, the Civil War era, there's at least one emperor that I am not certain is human.
Mm.
He didn't last very long, but you know, the exception proves the rule. Somebody was strong enough that he stepped in and did something, but he didn't last.
Mm. Who do you think that? Who do you think that was? Do tell.
I have it on my list
Oh,
somewhere here.
okay. Yeah, well, I don't want to put you on the spot to go find it, but
I won't tell you.
okay.
It's somewhere here. Um,
So, all right. Have we completed our tour of the alien races
yes,
around the
I think we
Empire?
have.
Okay.
Yep.
Let's see. Last year we were talking about Gen Con. Did you go to Gen Con?
Did go to Gen Con this
Mm-hmm.
year. It was a very enjoyable time. I gave some nice seminars, and you scratch me and I'll talk Traveller.
Uh-huh.
And we're kind of doing that here. You ask questions and you make me think, and I tell you the secrets or the things we've talked about. And it really is an enjoyable time for me to tell you the things that I've thought of that haven't been written down yet or have just been discussed. It's enjoyable for the people who come because they learn things for their campaigns or just secrets of the universe.
Mm-hmm. So, what when you go to something like Gen Con, like what kind of talks? I guess they have you on panels, and what topics do you talk about?
It's a seminar format rather than a panel
Mm-hmm.
because I just pull a chair up and sit down and I say, I'm going to talk. And if you have questions, raise your hand and I'll answer them. And it'll probably send me off in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
One of the discussion topics that I have, I call it RDME. It was created in association with Robert Eaglestone, who's one of the guys I talk to a lot. Rich decision-making environment. That's our imperative for Traveller. That we want to create a rich decision-making environment. You as the player bump into this situation, whether it's robbers or pirates or aliens or a challenging environment. It should be a rich decision-making environment. There's not one answer. I am surprised, pleasantly surprised sometimes, that I'll present a situation to players. And they come up with answers that I have no idea was coming. And we can I like stories. Traveller adventures, role-playing adventures benefit by having a plot out there, a goal that you're seeking,
Mm-hmm.
a reason why you're going somewhere, and a reason why somebody's chasing you from behind. But how you then set about doing that, books are full of possibilities. Somebody who's read the rules, know that they can turn and say, I'm going to do this. And we try it, and maybe it works, and maybe it doesn't. But that rich decision-making environment is just like the real world. That I'm pleasantly surprised when I meet people and the ways they approach real world things. That's what makes it interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the best one is when they do it in a way that involves the other characters in the adventuring team. Yes, but I'm going to need you to program the computer so that it'll do this. And everybody has their challenges and has their roles. And by that, I mean die rolls as well as role-playing roles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great when a plan comes together.
Yes, that's one of the things that endears the game to me. Is I really like well, I think like task chains were something that were added later, but it's something that we always kind of had where somebody was the specialist and they did their thing, like you say, program that computer to get us as close to the enemy as we can get, and then navigator take that plot and do something with it or whatever, and then everybody kind of does their job around the ship, and then to see how it comes out. And it's kind of like
And
it's like a camaraderie among the players, but also among the characters.
exactly right. And one of the tropes in D&D is you roll a natural 1 or a natural 20. Fine. A good plan involves you picking the strong guy to lift that end of the car, while the smart guy knows which valve to turn underneath, and the dexterous guy is the one who actually turns it. And each one of those has a 7, not a 3 or a 4, but a 9 or a 10. And the chance of that roll for them being successful is pretty much a given. And the excitement is when this dexterous guy fumbles. That's fine. Then we have to do something else. Do it again. I can't hold this very much longer. But it's not just the random, oh, I rolled this die roll unmodified and I got a critical hit or a critical success. It's a planning of using the smart guy and this dexterous guy and the strong guy in the right roles to achieve what they did. And somebody had to come up with that plan to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mentioned earlier
provides a synergy.
The synergy, but I mentioned earlier the Heinlein juvenile novels. So he wrote a dozen of them in the early 50s. And I read them, I loved them. They were about dexterous, smart teenagers adventuring between the worlds, and having a fun time and having results. Those influenced me to want to have players who could do that. And the important part there is young boys don't get to do that. Teenage boys don't get to do the things they do in Traveller, whether it's shooting guns or driving cars or flying spaceships or whatever that is. And Traveller gives them the opportunity. Mm-hmm. I say young boys because that's the trope.
Right. Well, it seems
players.
like the player base kind of skews that way. I was talking to Matthew earlier today, and through my own experience, like if I look at the demographics on my YouTube channel or on my Facebook groups, originally they were like 99% male. Now they're like 98. So it seems like we're starting to like penetrate into the different markets. So. I don't know, which is weird.
The number of girls in your group has doubled.
Yeah, which is weird because I also mentioned, like, out of my group of friends, there's a lot of women sci-fi fans that dress up like Klingons and go to Star Trek movies and go, I want to have relations with Worf or whatever, or they go in and they go, "You humans, move!" and then like people jump up and get out of the way, and then they sit down in the theater, So I'm surprised that it was so skewed. I mean, I thought it might be skewed a little bit towards, I thought it might be 70 or 80%, but I was surprised that it was so. Do you have any insight into why that is, or? My take on it was we were a bunch of nerdy guys who couldn't get girls to like talk to us, so that's why there was no girl Traveller players.
That was probably true. But I have family friends, and their granddaughter plays a D&D group with all girls.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't play Traveller. I haven't managed to make that happen, but they enjoy their time. There are still, I think, gender barriers in American society that make it a lot easier for an all-girl role-playing group to succeed. Role-playing group. And we are seeing a greater penetration. We are seeing a greater mix. But role-playing is still written mostly by men about men's stuff. Men like to have, role-playing is dominated by guns and weapons, and not by rules on how to negotiate or how to uh, um,
Research maybe, or
like
things that.
nonviolent conflict resolution.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
I've tried to do that in Traveller. I'm aware that there should be rules on how to deal with nonviolent solutions to problems.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in there, but a lot of people still like to haul out the auto pistol and
Right.
solve it that way.
Right. Even though they should know by now that that's your last, one of your
That is
last
not the way to
choices.
do it.
Somebody was complaining about like how deadly it was, and I said, "Well, have you ever played D&D? Like, if you're a wizard, you can get like somebody could, a bee sting could kill you. It's like, yes, Traveler's harsh, but it's no harsher than the other games, so don't pick on it. You know. So one of the other questions I asked you last year was your plans for Traveller Legacy after you retire? Have you and you said you were working on some things. Have you progressed on that at all?
Oh, I probably said the same thing I'll say now. I was struck when Greg Stafford died that in the immediate days, weeks afterwards, the Chaosium people spoke up and they said that Greg very responsibly had put a succession plan in place so that his legacy would not be lost and the things that he enjoyed would remain available to people after his passing. I was struck by that. That's important. We're coming to the time where I will pass. I don't like to admit it, and I don't want it to be anytime soon, but I'm actively working on a succession plan that makes sure that Traveller continues after I'm gone. I don't know who will be the new emperor. maybe it will be many, and they'll contend for the position.
Maybe we'll
know.
just put you in stasis and keep you in a glass case.
Oh my goodness!
A
You
foundation.
You can ask me questions, and I will tell you.
Exactly. We're not done with you yet. Oh, Emperor, is what happens when you roll a 2?
You haven't been. Where have you been? You haven't been and come in to see me for the last 3 weeks. It's lonely in here.
You could be like the captain on Dark Star. Do you remember that?
Yep.
He suffered an accident at some point during the ship's mission, and so they had him kept on barely on life support or stasis, and they would ask him important questions. Yeah. So
what a fate. Yes.
Yeah, right.
I don't mean, when you ask the question, I don't mean to be evasive.
I didn't think you were.
I don't have an answer to tell you that is
okay. Fair enough.
firm. It's just that
it takes a lot of planning, and it's only been a year, so who knows like how long.
My friend Mike Ford, who died, science fiction writer, and after he died, his books basically went out of print. And there was some thought that his family did not like or respect his science fiction writings, and so they weren't cooperating. And there was some lamentation about that. It turns out that they just hadn't paid enough attention to him because they didn't care very much. And when they finally tracked down who had inherited the rights, they were happy to do the appropriate agreements to put them back in print. That's a lack of a succession plan. And I'm working on a succession plan so that nothing will ever impede the growth and enjoyment of Traveller.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think I mentioned last time I asked you if any of your family members were interested, and you said unfortunately no. And that kind of reminded me, I had a friend whose parents had a really nice and successful business, but he wasn't into it. And so when his father passed away, he didn't want to go. He didn't want the family business, and so it ended up shutting down. I always thought maybe he could just hire a manager to like run it for him and they could keep it in the family. But you know, that's just my that's my dream, not his.
Yeah, that's your dream. You know, and my family loves me,
Mm-hmm.
respects me, but they have other things that they want to do with their lives, and
Sure.
I'm smart enough not to insist that they be in something like this. And
No.
I've had those active discussions, and
Mm-hmm.
they're happy to have me come up with a plan that will put it in the hands of people who are passionate about Traveller.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you know, I have some basic rules about Traveller that I insist on. One of them is, forgive me here, I don't even like talking about no TNA.
Mm-hmm.
That it's
Somebody
good,
had mentioned
wholesome.
that they appreciated that. Just so you know.
You know, it's good, wholesome fun that I don't have to be invited. I don't have to be embarrassed talking about it at church,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
They don't roll their eyes and say, "Oh, that stuff."
Right.
It's good, wholesome fun.
Right. There's nothing really
Um,
salacious about it.
no,
No.
there isn't, and that's a good. That's a foundational thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I hope it's pretty hard to write that into rules
Mm-hmm.
on things, but I hope that our process will keep it good, clean fun.
I think you've cultivated a culture that respects that and appreciates it. Um,
Yeah.
I run a fairly successful Traveller Facebook group, and I'm always open to people submitting art and stuff. But somebody was submitting like what I would just call pinup art, and while it was good art, it was it made me feel like Traveller dirty or something. It was weird, you know.
Yeah.
And I told him you can't do that.
You know, I have some. One of the projects I'm working on is kind of a 6x9 handbook. I've got the facsimile edition. I want to make that work with Traveller 5, and so bring in a lot more stuff. And I have some images of characters, character illustrations. You know, I like the ones that are, you know, action pictures, but I also like pictures just somebody kind of standing there looking at you, give you an idea of a person. And I have two of them, and you know, one of them is kind of a nice, slim fit man and a similar woman. I also have an overweight man and an overweight woman, you know, because I, I I don't want it to be. We're not talking about perfection. I mean, people's numbers don't roll out all to 7 or to 10. They come out with 2s or 8s or 12s, depending on whatever. And they're not infinite diversity is enjoyable.
It is
And
one
I
of
think it's welcoming to have a non-perfect player.
it is. I imagine in the future you could just easily change your body to be whatever's considered ideal for the time. But I also kind of like to, you know, people like to see themselves in the future setting, and so I make an effort to have, you know, in my art, overweight people or ugly people or people with scars or blemishes or older people, younger people, you know, just diverse people, because in my mind the future is going to be is a cosmopolitan place full of every kind of person, and maybe, yeah, maybe on some planets it's more fashionable to be chubby, and on some it's more fashionable to be fit, and so you would still have fit. Not everybody would be you know, svelte.
You know, one of the magics of Traveller is that a teenage boy can be a 50-year-old man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, we are playing not. You don't have to go through a lot of work to get to be that adult with a lot of skills
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of experience, and they don't have to do a lot of work to get there. And but then they've got to make it work. But they can be a Captain Kirk if they want to.
Right. I pointed out to some friends that it was a good like ensemble feeling, because like if you look at like Star Trek Next Generation, you have like Dr. Pulaski, you know, she's older, and you have Picard, he's older, but then you also have Wesley, he's younger, and then you have some of the other officers, they're in their 30s, they're all about the same age. So there was a mix of people who are older and younger and diverse. And so there's no reason everybody on the crew should be 30 or 40 or 20 or whatever, So it was good to have a mix of, a doctor, they have to go to school and stuff. And so they're doing a bunch of training before they get out into the world. Whereas other people might just go straight from school and tend to do a gap year and then never go back,
and our players are the same way, that some of them want to play an older one. Some of them want somebody really embrace the idea of being the muscle in the group. Some really embrace the idea of being the healer. D&D sets this. I don't think anybody's spent enough time looking at the traditional character class trilogy of D&D. There's a reason why it's a cleric and a fighter and a wizard.
Mm-hmm.
That each of them does different things.
Right.
And together they make it work.
Right. Yeah. It's very cool.
Because we always just leave the poor scout on the ship. The only reason we have him is because he's got a ship. He waits up there and watches us while we go down an adventure.
I'm playing with some really cool folks. I just realized that I haven't played Traveller since I was a teenager. I'll be 56 this year, and I've been GMing this whole time. And so one of my Patreons invited me to come play Traveller, and I was like elated. It's like, I haven't played Traveller since I was a teenager. Anyway, I'm having a great time. I'm a scholar, and I'm a xenoastrocosmologist. And what is that? I don't know. It's something weird. But I'm having a lot of fun being the eccentric doctor. So I'm.
Yeah, true role playing, because
I've got a social of 4, so I'm really socially awkward, and I do annoying things, and I complain about stupid things, and everybody has a fun time, So it's really flexible. It's great. You can take a character who has flaws and maybe got injured in aging and just play that up. There's nothing wrong with the character. Flaws is what make a character interesting, Play it up if you have a low social standing, maybe you're annoying, maybe that's why you can't advance, in the noble society, because you're a loudmouth or you're shy, or, could be any kind of thing. You just got to.
So I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to bring up something that I've been working on, and I think that we can probably make it work in time for Mayday.
No.
So I'm working on a comic book format, character generation thing. Several years ago, I went to Gen Con and I took something called Can You Survive? And it's basically a Traveller character generation process. If you can survive character generation. And at the end, if you do, you get a nice character. And I've been having a comic book artist put it together. So it's in comic book form, 16, 24 pages, walking you through the basic process of survival, mission, promotion, skills, re-enlistment. You could die. Of course you could die. And I was just interacting with the artist earlier today, and I think that it's just about at the point that it's done. So we should make that available. PDF. Put it up. You and I will work out some links on Mayday, and people can download it and play it and fool with it. And tell me how it works or doesn't work. Because, I'd rather
maybe we can get people to post their characters. Maybe we can get people to post their characters that they made,
that'd be fun.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So, but I would have people do that, and then I'll fix the things that are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really meant to be something to introduce a character, a player, to Traveller. Mm-hmm. That at the end of it, they've got a character,
right?
And now they want to play, and you guys can make him. You play an adventure with him because you've got a character.
Mm-hmm.
But it's meant to take somebody who has almost no understanding of Traveller and get them started.
That sounds like a great idea. When I go to conventions and run a game, I send the players off with the character sheet of the character that they played in the game, and they like walk away like they got a prize, and they're very full of happiness.
And this process, it's been fun. When I've done it, their character dies, and they just howl when their character dies. Oh no! And then we've got to start over. That's the central trope of Traveller, is that you can die before you get started.
Right.
And I really play that up. But in character, it's all your own fault if you die. You're the guy who pushed it one more die roll.
Right.
It's your fault. So in the Traveller novel, we have something called the Dakaseri, which is space heaven. It's where all the souls that will ever be or have ever lived or ever will live are watching what's going on now. It's a Volani legend.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a rather complex place, mostly by just people who are mindlessly watching. But there's room for adventures there. And one of my thoughts is that we need to harvest the dead characters from character generation and have them adventure up there.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And explore and see what this is. I'll have to tell you, I don't know the answer yet. I don't know if it's real, if it's fantasy, I don't know. But that'd be fun too. We'll see if that ever gets anywhere. But Frank, we'll have some links.
Yes.
We're going to show people.
Right.
And we're going to do them on Mayday.
All right.
And see where that goes.
All right, fantastic. Yes, I will link them in this video, and I'll also post them around on the homepage, and then promote it around in the various socials. So yes, I will work my side.
And there'll be free download drive-through RPG.
All right, great, awesome. So you want to answer some questions from the community?
Got some time for that? Let's do that.
All right. My friend Bob Lofton, who runs SafecoCast, which is a Traveller podcast, he wants to know, what is your favorite sci-fi novel?
Starhammer by Christopher Rowley. I tell you, read it. Great science fiction. 2 sequels that are equally intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
Susceptible to, on the one hand, it's just rousing space opera.
Say the title again?
Pardon me?
Say the title again?
Starhammer.
Starhammer?
Starhammer.
Oh, Starhammer. Okay. Gotcha. Sorry, you got chopped off there.
Yes.
Oh, look, you have it handy.
Starhammer
Gotcha.
by Christopher Rowley.
All right.
My autographed copy, because
look at that.
I reached out to him. A very deep, very interesting, very intriguing space opera piece that I think is a fun read.
All right. Tommy Jensen wants to know, what inspired you to make the game, and I assume to play the game? What books, movies, or other media gave you the ideas for the game?
We've actually written a book. Shannon Appelkline has done a book called The Science Fiction in Traveller, which talks about all of, not just for me, but science fiction that has influenced Traveller.
Mm-hmm.
I read science fiction voraciously, and I wanted to do so many of those things in Traveller. Some of the common tropes, I mean, Andre Norton and Robert Heinlein, both talk about astrogators and free traders and the basic structures that are fun. I mean, so much science fiction. Dune has huge liners doing things, but the fun thing is free trader Beowulfs and small scout ships going around and looking at things and having complete autonomy to do things.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Sven Munther wants to know, what inspired the trade system?
You notice that Traveller, every one of the Travelers has what I now call maker systems. I don't mean this as a criticism, I mean this as an alternative. Dungeons and Dragons gives us a list of the monsters, and each monster is written up and it tells you its damage level and hit points and what it does and a paragraph of description. That's still easily done for a magic system on Earth, quote Earth. Traveller is about the vast galaxy and beyond, and I can't possibly list all of them. And the problem is I can't have, dinosaurs the same on every planet. So we needed to have an animal generation system. We needed to have a trade system that covered everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we tried to do. To cover everything from trading with a tech level 0 Stone Age society
Mm-hmm.
to a tech level 15 factory society. And that's what the trade system tries to do.
I've noticed that people try to get fabulously wealthy by doing trade, but it is hard to do.
Well, it's meant to make you think you can do it.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, that explains it then. That's what I was going to ask.
But it's hard.
Sven also wants to know if Traveller was also the first skill-based RPG.
Hold on just a minute. Okay, thank you. That can be edited out.
Yeah,
I had an appointment after this, which has been canceled.
Oh, excellent. You were busy anyway.
But at least,
Oh, sorry that they canceled on you. So, So was Traveller the first skill-based RPG that you're aware of, or why did you choose skill-based? Well, answer the first one first. If it's the first skill-based RPG.
To my knowledge, it is.
Okay.
In retrospect, we can analyze and we can look at, a level-based role-playing game like Dungeons and Dragons. But that, and there's a process that it's doing. It's taking the young farm boy who decides he wants to go out adventuring and start building him up, or the guy who wants to be a fighter or a wizard or a cleric or whatever he wants to be. You start young and you have to work your way up. Star Trek, any one of the space movies, whatever, Flash Gordon, doesn't start that way. It's got experienced people in there. We needed a way to have experienced people in the group.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we had our career.
I see.
But the other thing is we needed skills. It's a technological game. You need skills. And it just seemed naturally that Traveller had to have skills.
With the popularity of D&D and its class system, why did you decide that you were going to move away from that and try a class-based system? I mean, was there like I don't want to say an awareness of wanting to be different and try a career-based system or a skill-based system rather than a class-based system?
We didn't have those names to the systems.
Mm.
But as a war game designer with rules writing, taking a battle or a structure or a war or something and writing up rules for it, creating not characters, but units, and that I was used to writing rules to get a result,
mm-hmm.
and to mimic reality. And we saw the science fiction reality as different than the fantasy reality. The fantasy reality is Conan. It's the barbarian or the wizard or D&D is Lord of the Rings. It really is with the numbers filed off.
Right.
Um, um,
And those characters seem to be more of an archetype, whereas Traveller characters are like a conglomeration of careers, because you don't always stay in the same career.
That, and we were trying to be realistic. We don't really hear how hobbits, what they do. They live forever. They sit there and they smoke their tobacco and they farm the farm and they do what they do. But they don't seem to have prior careers. The elves don't seem to have. How do they earn a living? Who do they work for? Where did their money come from? In fantasy, you don't need to know that. In science fiction, I want to know what Captain Kirk did before he got to be captain. I want to know who these people are. Science fiction has, think of it, the movies before Star Wars. We have Star Trek, but we also have Flash Gordon. You have, the athletic hero, but you also have the doctor who is the scientist and knows what dials to turn. And you can't just start out with him as a young guy. He's already there.
Right.
So
that's how you did that. Okay.
And it was not deliberate. That was the way that seemed to work to get us an answer, get us an output that we wanted.
All right. Richard Hazelwood wants to know, with all the variations within Traveller and the open gaming license, what do you think of the? Do you think the open gaming license is working?
I really like the old open gaming license. It gives people the opportunity to do something other than the original Traveller universe. Traveller is a phenomenon that we want everybody to come under our umbrella and be part of. I sometimes look at some of the other science fiction role-playing games out there, and they've created a whole new games rules system for a scenario in Traveller. Good. I mean, I like game rule systems. They add new things, new dimensions to what we see. They add a new characteristic. They add a new something. I use that all the time. I like to read other role-playing games and see how they work and what people have. Example is, I just had an interaction today with Sandy Peterson and Cthulhu. I stole sanity out of Cthulhu. I took it. It's in Traveller 5 because I think it's a great addition. It's that sanity makes horror role-playing possible. And I added it to Traveller 5 because I want that opportunity for our players, that we can end up in the depths between space, confronted by things that we don't understand and that slowly degrade our sanity, and maybe we will make it home and have to take some sort of a pill every day. So that we don't
Your space
zero
madness, right?
The madness between the stars. There are interesting things that we can find in other people's approaches to writing role-playing. But
the SRD and the OGL are a low barrier of entry for people who are interested in contributing whatever's in their head.
There are two parts of role-playing. One is background and one is rules. And it's a challenge to be good at both.
Right.
And you shouldn't have to reinvent rules if you want to write wonderful scenarios.
It's a good philosophy.
Open gaming license lets you do that.
Fred Hood wants to know, what does Mark think of the Milieu books? Not tied to a particular system, but covering any changes to character and system generation, the technologies available and how they're used, for instance.
I love Milieu books. I love the milieus, there are Milieu books I would love to see. I would love to see humans adventuring in the time of Grandfather as running ships with grandfather giving you a chip to let you be a pilot. And you go off and do something, and if you do well, he will reward you. And your group of people who were kidnapped from Earth, and you want to find a place for your tribe to finally live on. I mean, that'd be a great milieu book, and we would explore all that's going on 300,000 years ago. All the alien books, the aliens from Classic Traveller are milieu books.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to focus on specific things that are interesting.
All right. Somebody wants to know if there's going to be a T5 Player's Guide or T5 Adventures book.
I'm working on a player's handbook. 6x9 sits on the table. Every player has it. Instead of asking the referee what to do is in those big 3 books.
Mm-hmm.
You can look it up and see how their spaceship travels and what to expect and what problems there are. Yes, it's something I'm working on.
All right.
But I'm slow at what I do. So.
That was Dan Higdon who asked that. Adrian Ford wants to know, what's your favorite ship?
Beowulf.
The Beowulf, of course.
Beowulf. I mean,
even though it has one turret down.
Well,
the main turret is down, and you still want to fly this jalopy?
I say that. I mean, think about it. Any one of those ships would work. I'll tell you the ship that the Explorer and Agent of the Imperium that Jonathan Bland takes out of storage because it's available, because he knows how to make the bureaucracy work, and they go off exploring forward of the Empire for 20 years. Can you imagine who wouldn't want to just be picked up out of this dull, boring life and go exploring and learn to be an astrogator? Yeah.
That gives me a good segue into my next question. Damon Lennon asks, he says, Agent of the Imperium is an incredible book, and it really provided an incredible and modern look into the inner workings of the Imperium. Are you hoping to release and have audiobooks made of other books in the future?
Absolutely. My next project is, we know that an agent portrays psionics as just kind of a charlatanry, quackery, disrespected process in the Imperium. They know it works.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't respect it. And there is an event that happens in 800 on the calendar, which turns the Empire totally against psionics and the Zhodani. Well, they already didn't like the Zhodani, but that turns them against the psionics. And this is the story of how that happened. That's the novel that is maybe a third of the way finished.
Do you have a working title?
It's The Suppressions.
Okay.
And it's dark.
All right.
It's dark.
All right. Tim Soholt writes, I'd love to know if Mark has any information about the deep lore of the GURPS alternate timeline. The late Lauren Wiseman implied that there was a singular event that distinguished the Rebellion timeline, and I've read that there was supposed to be a point a few hundred years down the line where the two timelines merged back together, but I've never seen anything confirmed to be from Mark on the subject.
Interesting question. So when we did the Rebellion, there were some people who did not like the death of Strephon. Okay, you're allowed to not like it. I mean, you can just ignore it if you want. Then GDW closed down. And I had a discussion, and when it closed down, Lauren Wiseman left GDW, where he had worked for 22 years, and got a job with Steve Jackson Games in Texas. I remember literally passing conversation. I have great conversations with Steve Jackson, and they last all of about 5 minutes. I don't think I've ever sat down and had dinner with him for hours. But our minds are very well attuned to each other. And he made the point that some people don't like the rebellion, and they would prefer an empire, a traveler empire that did not have that happen. And he made that point to me, and he said he wanted to do GURPS Traveler, and he wanted that to be the concept. I was aware at the time that there were some people who played GURPS who, if it wasn't GURPS, they wouldn't play it. And I thought they should be playing Traveler. And so our ideas meshed, that he should do Traveler GURPS. Yes, he should.
Mm-hmm.
And the central concept would be that the rebellion didn't happen. It was literally a handshake deal. And here we are.
All right.
That's what happened.
All right. So, all right.
Now, I'm a subscriber to what I call the riverbed theory of time. That there's the fan-shaped destiny where every event creates a new universe and they splay outwards and they diverge. And I've discussed the riverbed theory, which is the main timeline may diverge, but it always comes back to the riverbed. And 1,000 years later, it all looks the same.
Mm-hmm. It returns to like a homeostasis kind of. That's how it just goes back.
The central movement forward of the expansion of humanity into the universe. It's inconsequential that there was the rebellion, the empire, and the rebellion. The empire will dissolve and fall away anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Whether the rebellion makes it fall away or whether it takes another 200 years, 1,000 years later, it all looks the same.
Gotcha. All right. That's a good explanation.
Thank you.
Boris Sibik wants to know, how much did the American experience of Vietnam, both those who served and those who stayed behind, go into creating Traveller?
I know Boris. Hello, Boris. It certainly shaped things. It shaped my ideas of promotion in the military. There are two elements here. One, I joined the Army and I expected to be in for a career. And I failed my reenlistment role after one term. Boom. And I wasn't in the Army anymore. I had some skills, but that was it.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly influenced me, and that was my experience in the Vietnam era. The other was that I needed to, because we're dealing with characters who grow older, I had to pick up how aging worked. When did physical aging start, and what did it do? And the fact that if you exercise regularly, it will reduce the chance of it going down, but it won't eliminate the chance of your characteristics going down.
Mm-hmm.
When does mental aging come into play?
Mm-hmm.
I have to say that I wrote that when I was 30. And it is extremely accurate. That if you are 30, look at who your character is now, and look at where he'll be on all those aging things,
mm-hmm.
and it pretty much what's going to happen to you.
How did you figure that? I mean, did you just speculate, or did you actually do some statistical demographics?
Oh no,
research,
I speculated. I just was very accurate.
Boris also wants to know if Traveller postulates first contact with the Valani in a few years. Please explain why they haven't why we are not picking up the signals.
Any day now.
Let's see. Boris would also like to know, how much development of the OTU did you participate in?
I was the central guide of the OTU. I had extremely helpful, competent partners in creating it. That John Harshman was adamant that we should be scientifically accurate. He's the one who suggested ecological niches for animals, or beasts. I mean, it's so scientific. It just is the obvious way to do it. That frankly, it's as important as vectors. Um, Frank Chadwick wrote the list of emperors, which created the structure or the history of the empire. And everything has happened since then, has kind of riffed off that list. But it was a list which gave us a structure. He wanted to do military, mercenary sort of things. And he created those structures so that they worked. I was the central filter that everything went through. And that a lot of people worked very hard to express what they thought Traveller should have. Always against this mirror of, is it understandable to the typical player? We didn't want to do something that was incomprehensible. But think about all those things. We can understand the structure of the Aslan and the Ihate who need land and so leave the home territory to settle new territory is understandable. It's alien, but it's understandable. All those ideas. We didn't have meetings and, what are we going to do next? But we would just have discussions over lunch or just sitting in an office. And all of that came together because a lot of people worked very hard about this passion they had for Traveller.
All right. Let's see. Actually, Boris sent in quite a few questions. Picking through. Okay, this one's interesting. Would you consider the ancients a singular race or a multiplicity of races that inhabited charted space at the time of antiquity? It is also said that grandfather created his children, robotic creations, and created his children. Did he use robotic creations and clones, or just the old-fashioned method of genetic manipulation?
It's another story I'm trying to work on, is to define who grandfather is and what he is. But basically, we know that grandfather was a genetic mutation which brought together traits or lines or abilities that were already present in the droid, and became the very much unique individual. He's still around. My concept is that it was just the droid, and that their society divided early into his sons, his children. I say sons and accept that it is all genders, so that's okay. Do his work as he explores and investigates the universe. But the other half of society, or portion of society, is dedicated to ascending to a higher plane. And that's this division. His children do his work and enable the rest of society to do whatever's necessary to ascend to a higher plane.
Now, are these?
They do sometime before they die.
Are these his metaphorical children, or is actual offspring?
Actual offspring.
Okay.
That he, with many mothers and by many methods, he's made himself immortal. He's made them a kind of a lower level of immortality, not quite as immortal, and they do what he says. And some of them have rebelled against him.
Mm-hmm. All right. Ross McClure says, one of the things I love about what Marc Miller shared was his story about making the special boots because of the weird foot-grabbing aliens, and how that's not really in the rules. That kind of storytelling is would be good to get more of for posterity. Do you have any more examples of these sorts of things that are memorable to you?
He's talking about Badger Boots, which is the group that I played with a long time ago, who basically didn't know the rules. They didn't care about the rules. They just wanted to enjoy playing Traveller.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's very easy to do that then because they say what they want to do, not constrained by what they think they can do. And in that particular case, they had to leave their ship and go do something, but it was just a sea of badgers who would climb up your legs and, mouths full of teeth and all that sort of stuff. So they fabricated badger boots with little skirts of metal around the waist so that they could climb up, but they couldn't get past the little skirt. So, the idea of wading through ravenous eating things to do your job is enough. But they did, and they succeeded, and we laughed about it. The other story, the memorable story I have, I think I've told this before, but is playing in a game at a convention. We had 6 players, a bunch of kind of frat guys, and another player, a girl who joined. They all had characters, and it was just such contrast because they're all naval guys, and she was a scout. They're exploring a ship, and they're a team and exploring a ship. She had low social standing. They all knew each other anyway, and she was just kind of an add-on. And he was a smart player, a character, but player. And so they're making their way into this dark, no-power ship. They're going to explore it. What are they going to do? He says, we should find the bridge. We rolled her social standing, and everybody ignored her. Then one of these guys said, we should find the bridge. And yeah, let's. And then they went and found the bridge. She kept having good ideas, kept suggesting them, kept getting ignored by the other people. She would have been a great leader if she just had the right characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
But it became a trope. It became a laugh because she would make suggestions, and then somebody else would make the same suggestion and get credit for it. And
was she a good sport about it?
It was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. Just she really understood. In other circumstances, she would have been the heroine of the story, and instead, she just became ignored.
Here's a couple of things I'd like to read you. John Chappell says, "No questions, just thank you."
Well, thank you, John.
Matthew Kerwin says, "Does Mark know that he's my hero?" when you hear things like that,
I do now. Yeah.
How does it make you feel to hear things like that?
I started out when I talked about being the emperor, but I can't be an emperor unless I have subjects.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the greatest hobby, the greatest enterprise in the world, and it's that way because people enjoy playing Traveller, and because they sometimes say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I am humbled by that.
I just find that gratifying and rewarding. I know I would.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do people come up to you all the time and say thank you? Like when they see you at conventions and stuff? They
do. I mean, that's one of the things that people say, that, they'll say, I have played this game since I was this. I've been playing since, and I listen to the date and I can tell where they came into the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it clearly has been an enterprise for them that they have enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing better than to have someone tell you, I've been playing your game for a long time and I've enjoyed it.
Share their passion for the game that you created.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. John Presack wants to know, how do you keep all the history straight and consistent?
Well, I'm the central repository. I know what's going on, more or less. That's why I have the riverbed theory.
Mm-hmm.
If things go wrong, they will right themselves.
Bring it back in line.
The universe wants to make things the way it is. Yeah.
Okay. Soren Peterson wants to know what happened to the Cursai.
I have not yet decided.
All right. Let me see. Just a couple more, and then we'll wrap this up because we're getting into 2 hours. And
yeah, we are.
Man,
we?
I could talk about this stuff all day, but I don't want to keep you.
Save something for next year.
Yeah, really. Let's see. Robert Fisher wants to know, I'm wondering if there are any stories from your own campaigns. If there are any stories of Marc's own campaigns out there, or if he's willing to publish some. He loves reading.
I talk about stuff all the time, but I don't have any more I can add just right at the moment. I will, I want to comment that Mongoose is on the verge of publishing a great big book about the history of Traveller. And we should watch for that. Shannon Appelkind wrote it. He's the guy who did Designers and Dragons. And he's a great historian of role-playing and role-playing games and the game industry. And it's just really, I've seen proofs for it.
Uh-huh.
And it's just a great story of where all of these editions are and where they came from and what's in them. And
man, that'll be a great read. I've seen it. I've seen Mongoose kind of maybe pre-advertising it or talking about it.
Yeah, they're teasing it at the moment.
Yeah, it looks good. And when I talked to Matthew earlier today, he mentioned it, so I'm excited to see that. I like that stuff, and I think this will connect back. Let's see. Chrissy Garrison says or asks, why does Marc think that Traveller is still being played and built upon nearly 50 years after he started it, when so many other role-playing games have come and gone in that time?
I think Traveller resonates with people. I mean, it's not generic, but it lets us be that person we want to be in the science fiction stories. It lets us as game masters run things. It lets us as players be one of those people that we want to be, and that we've always, and it just fulfills something in us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I say there are other science fiction role-playing games, and they do various things, but Traveller was there first, and really touches my heart, I think our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly thank all those people who have been playing it for 50 years. Not quite 50. 50 is 2027 is the 50th anniversary.
Oh, all right. Do you have big plans? Is it gonna
absolutely
big convention? I mean, I know Traveller cons every year. Are there plans in the works for events or activities for that year?
Where there are plans, I don't know what they're going to be yet, but they're trying to plan.
All right, cool. Dylan Jones wants to know, why did they go with the ancient aliens genetic engineering backstory for the human race in the OTU?
Say the whole question again.
Why did they go with the ancient aliens genetic engineering backstory for the human race?
We certainly needed we needed humans in many worlds to reflect, just because we are humans and we want to play humans. And we wanted to abandon the idea that Earth was a huge empire, an Earth-centered empire. And so we needed some reason why there were many genetically consistent humans on many worlds. And the easiest way to do it was aliens picked us up from Earth and distributed us. And it went from there.
All right. As good a fit explanation as any. Actually, a good one. And also in line with sci-fi, the like dispersion or diaspora kind of seeding humans around.
I wanted to do parallel evolution of humans.
Mm-hmm.
And John Harshman just said, no, that's stupid. That won't work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to work with him. He was the scientific advisor.
Brian Perkins wants to know if there are any plans to to open up classic travelers. Let me rephrase this. They're wondering if there is plans for a license structure that would allow people to write classic traveler adventures commercially.
No.
Okay.
Any plans? Might be a suggestion.
Okay.
Might even be something we would consider.
Okay.
His
point is that it would, keep classic rolling with new, fresh stuff.
I sell a lot of the Traveller CD-ROM, the classic Traveller CD-ROM. I mentioned that before. It's a bargain. It has all, 13 adventures and 6 double adventures and 13 supplements and 8 books. It's a great resource. I have the classic Traveller facsimile edition. Basically, the original 3 Little Black Books book as a PDF with the errata that we have developed for it, tabbed in so that it's accessible to all of us who want to pull that up and do something. But that's scanned material in a PDF. I've looked at typesetting it so that it's true error-corrected typesetting, electronic version instead of scanned version. If I would go to that trouble, I would not reproduce it the way it was 44 years ago. I would add everything we've learned since then. I would add in, I would have the six careers plus another 12 careers. I would rewrite how space combat works. I would put in some changes for world generation. I would put in some changes for trade. I would a lot of things differently. And that means I would make a version that's more consistent with Traveller 5 than a simply facsimile edition of the words that we wrote 44 years ago. People can write adventures consistent with classic Traveller using the modern rules, and everybody would be better served.
But how so if somebody wanted to, let's say they had some ideas for some good classic Traveller adventures and wanted to produce them commercially, should they contact you and see, pitch it to you, or?
Well, there's the Cepheus license. There's the
so you rather than go that route,
or the Traveller's Aid Society license.
Mm-hmm.
There are opportunities, and if they can't find one of those opportunities that work, they can certainly talk to me,
mm-hmm.
and I'd be happy to talk to them.
Okay. A lot of people, they really, everybody has a favorite edition, and a lot of folks really, the classic Traveller people really, really like it, and they, I think they would like to see some fresh new stuff coming out for it.
Yeah.
If the community is up to it, maybe that could be something that works out.
We'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. It's cool that you're open to discussing that. Let's see. All right. Couple people have asked about that. I'd love to see a T5 with a community license so we can develop it ourselves. The same thing for classic. Let's see. Christopher Pippinow says, if Mark could do it all over again, would he?
Absolutely. Come on, who would not pick being able to write a role-playing game that's still running almost 50 years later, that is popular, that has people like it and like me? I'm blessed. Blessed is the word. Lucky is pure chance and rolling 11s or 12s. Blessed is something there has happened to help me be better and enjoy this, and I appreciate that.
All right. Let's just do one or two more, and then we'll wrap this up. Grant Castleberry wants to know, if you were creating travel for the first time today, what would you do differently?
Boy, Traveller was created at a unique time when role playing was bright and shiny. It would be a hard thing to do today because we got in early and got in people's minds early and got there with the right ideas early. There are minor tweaks I would do, but Traveller resonates with people's minds. Some sort of better work on. I don't think you could do it today because we're at a different time.
Mm.
If I was back then at that time, I'm not sure I would change anything.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So let's talk about near-term future. What do you have any aside from the that character development system you're trying to get out in time for Mayday? Do you have anything on the immediate horizon for release? Or you're still working on your manuscript for your next book?
I'm working on the manuscript for the novel, the
Mm-hmm.
next novel. I hope to have that done by the end of the year, which means it would be published sometime at the end of next year.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to do that. I want to do that. I've got I've been fooling with comic book format things because they're nice and easy to handle and easy to get in, easy to access. I have a similar comic book, which is basically a tour of the Beowulf. And it's promoting Second Dynasty's 3D printable Beowulf.
Oh yeah, very cool. I happen to have
cool.
one here.
I have mine on order. So
I don't have the gigantic one, but one of my players, as a gift, sent me the one like this big. But...
Yeah, well, I need the gigantic
mm-hmm.
one.
Right.
But it's a nice introduction to what the Beowulf is, and I see it as another table product, something that you can hand to the players. It's got some deck plans in it. It's got a description of where everything is and why it's there, and what you do with it. And it's just useful to players who don't know everything,
mm-hmm.
to kind of understand and to spark their imaginations on how they're going to play and what they're going to do. So you're on this ship, and here's this comic book, 24 pages, telling you what your spaceship is.
Right. All right. Cool. I one of the things I liked, I'm not sure who the artist was, but they used to draw like elevation, or just elevations of the rooms in the different parts of the ship, and here's what the lounge looks like, here's what your stateroom looks like, and it really kind of solidified that and made it feel real.
Yes, and there's too little of that sort of useful art in Traveller, and it's one of the things I'm trying to make happen.
Right. Is there a place where people can join a Marc Miller social media group? Like, do you have a Facebook group or a Discord, or too busy for that kind of thing? Or
I'm on Twitter.
Okay.
I don't do a lot of posts. I do some. If you follow me at Traveller News, 2 L's, plural, Traveller News. You'll see my posts once in a while. I don't have that sort of a thing. There are things like the Citizens of the Imperium discussion boards. Traveller Wiki is a great collaborative thing, which is filled with information. Traveller Map is Joshua Bell's Traveller Map is just a wonderful resource. For those that don't know about it, I expect most of the people listening know about it. But if you don't, you need to look those things up because they're great resources.
We're having actually Traveller Josh Bell is going to be giving an interview this year. So
travellermap.com, and he keeps expanding that because now you can pick a world and then go to Traveller. There's a link in there that will map the world for you, give you a geodesic map, give you a change the seed and remap it if you don't like the map you got. Great resource for players, great resource for game masters.
Yeah, that's another thing that kind of brings the world to life, is being able to see that vast catalog of planets and drill down into each one and just imagine the adventures that you can have in that setting because they're just so detailed.
Just as an aside here briefly, because I say game master, I was looking recently. Traveller calls that person the referee.
Right.
It was the term that was originally used in Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, really?
He talks about a referee.
Interesting. I know that that's the technical term, but I always use GM just because that's what gamers. That's gamer.
Everybody knows.
Gamer nomenclature. Yeah. So, all right. And where can people find your products? At the farfuture.net and
farfuture.net
mm-hmm.
and traveller5.net.
Okay.
2 L's.
All right.
Digit 5. The Mongoose website, mongoosepublishing.com.
Mm-hmm.
Drivethrurpg.com.
All right.
You're going to post some links for this specific comic book.
Yes.
So people can actually give me some feedback on it before I print up a bunch of copies to take to conventions and whatever.
All right.
So,
all right.
Frank, I want to express my appreciation for you talking to me today.
Really? Oh, thank you. It's really my honor.
Thank you. But, Traveller is just part of the greatest hobby in the world. And it's been going for, I can't tell you. So it's 1977 when it started.
Mm-hmm.
1977. So that's 47 years ago. Close to that.
Mm-hmm.
Our 50th anniversary is going to be 2027. Got big things going. Not that there aren't big things going now, where the Fifth Frontier Wars ready to start any day now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, tomorrow, I think. Yeah, I super appreciate you, and it's my pleasure to put this thing together and to bring in all these folks to chat and talk about. It's just so fascinating to me, and I was while I was looking at these questions, asking you folks about what do you think about your journey and where you are now, and I was thinking about, like, when I was playing Traveller, I never thought I would be talking to Marc Miller. I mean, it's like having Gary Gygax come over to your house as D&D nerd. So I mean, I super appreciate it. And I told my friends, did you ever think that I would be talking with Gary Gygax? I mean, Marc Miller, and that he would be so gracious and stuff.
So you're basically saying I'm the Gary Gygax of science fiction.
Yeah, you're like the Gary Gygax. You're like the head of Traveller, right? So, like,
no.
I don't know how you take that, but to me, I'm giving you a compliment.
I do completely. Gary Gygax is the Marc Miller of fantasy role-playing.
Right. Exactly. So we just had always admired your stuff, and honestly, I thought you were British because Traveller's with 2 L's. But when I bought Marc Miller's Traveller, I was inspired to, I always write like utility programs and stuff. And so, like, I had like a planetary decoder and different kinds of things. And when that came out, I wrote to you, you probably don't remember it, but I wrote to you and I said something like, I would really like to write some utility programs for Traveller, and do you mind? And you were so gracious and stuff. And you were like, no, go right ahead. and that meant a lot to me. So thanks. You're very approachable.
That must have been in BASIC.
It might have been GFA BASIC. I was programming on the Atari. When I was 22, I was a registered independent developer for Atari. So, but then they closed down their computer line, and so I was kind of stranded. But that's okay. I went on to PC, and now I'm doing all kind. I roll with it, and I learned that I always keep up with the newest languages. So,
yes,
yeah. So. Now I write now the decoders are written in Python and other languages.
Left me way behind, literally, I learned to program in Fortran.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yes. I think when I was in high school, you could learn BASIC or COBOL, and then when I was in college, I learned Pascal. And I never used any of those languages. I don't know. They just came and went. And I got a Novell certification and then never used that either. Okay, well, let's get off my
Frank,
waste
I
of a
want to
life.
tell you how much, Frank, I want to tell you how much I appreciate you talking to me today. I've had a wonderful time.
Thank you.
And you remember that ultimately we hope that the Beowulf is rescued.
Yes. It's been stranded and drifting for a long time.
Oh, no.
Well, all right, Mark, let's wrap this up. We've talked about what you've been up to. We talked about your future plans. We got some community questions in. I think we had a successful and what I want to say, like complete interview. So thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you come back next year.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, folks. Well, that's it for this year's interview. I've been speaking with Marc Miller, the creator of Traveller, who we also call him the Emperor. And I hope again you'll join us again next year, Mark. Thank you so much.
Okay, so one last thing I'm going to do here. This will be fun. That I'm going to. I have a stack of nobilities. Just a card, making somebody the baron or count or whatever of something in the Spinward marches. And they need to send me. We're going to do the old technology because it's an old technology. See, they have to. How do I do this?
While supplies last.
While supplies last. See, I've got to mail it to them. Okay. So, PayPal me $2.
How much?
$2.
$2?
$2.
Okay.
Yeah. PayPal me $2, and that buys an envelope and the card and a postage and me making the label. And if they PayPal me, it's got their address in there, so I can do that.
Okay.
Boom. And I will send them an imperial nobility in the Spinward marches.
Oh, all right. Fantastic.
Randomly generated without regard to importance. So some people will get a count or a duke, and others will get a baronet.
All right. Yeah, that's a cool gift.
Yep. And so the email is the PayPal is onlooker1. We'll do this. farfuture.net.
Okay. I'll put a link.
I'll give you an address.
Okay.
And I'll put a link.
All right.
Yeah, there'll be a link.
All right. That sounds fun.
But only on Mayday.
Okay.
It's not just an open-ended thing. You got to do it only on Mayday. Maybe we'll slip a couple hours, but
okay.
It's a Mayday celebration. They got to be attending the celebration.
All right. There. So you want it postmarked, or you want it in the bank, in the PayPal on Mayday, in the Imperial coffers on Mayday.
Yeah.
All right. Got it. All right. Cool. Thanks. That's awesome. I've seen those around, and they're highly valued. Okay. All right, folks. Well, we've been speaking with Marc Miller, and we've come to the end of our interview. So I want to wish everybody a happy Mayday Mayday, and until next time, travelers, happy traveling. Don't fly solo through the galaxy. Click like to join our alliance. Subscribe for your crew pass, and enable notifications to never miss an encounter. This journey is fueled by my patrons. Thank you, patrons. Feel the thrill of discovery. Become a patron and join the adventure.